My brother and best friend buried me alive for 2.3 billion rupees. I recorded everything. They say you can't choose your family, but you can choose whether to let them bury you literally. My name is Marcus Chen, and 18 months ago, my younger brother Adrian and my best friend of 20 years, Daniel, drugged me at my own charity gala and buried me in a construction site for my $2.3 billion tech empire. They thought concrete would keep their secret forever. They were wrong. I'm watching from this penthouse in Singapore right now. Yes, I'm alive, and if you're someone who's ever been betrayed by those closest to you, stay with me. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. I want to know who's joining this journey of justice. And hit that subscribe button, because the plot twists in this story will leave you questioning everything about trust. Adrian and I couldn't have been more different. While I spent nights coding in our garage, building what would become NeuralSync, the AI platform that revolutionized predictive healthcare, Adrian spent them at country clubs, perfecting his golf swing and his smile. Our parents used to joke, Marcus got the brains, Adrian got the charm. But jokes have a way of becoming prophecies. By age 28, I'd taken NeuralSync public. By 30, we were valued at $2.3 billion. Adrian? He was my chief marketing officer, a title I gave him out of guilt, not merit. Every family gathering, our mother would pull me aside. Take care of your brother, he doesn't have your gifts. I should have noticed how his jaw tightened every time she said it. Daniel Reeves entered my life during MIT's hackathon weekend. We were paired randomly, the introvert coder and the charismatic presenter. We won first place. More importantly, I thought I'd found a brother by choice, not blood. For 2 decades, Daniel was my co-founder, my best man, my daughter's godfather. He knew my passwords, my fears, my medical conditions, including the severe claustrophobia that made me avoid elevators and tunnels. That last detail would matter more than I ever imagined. The changes started small. Adrian suddenly interested in board meetings he'd previously skipped, Daniel suggesting we update our life insurance policies, standard procedure for executives, he said. Whispered conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. But the real tell? My daughter Emma, only 7, asking me one evening, Daddy, why does Uncle Adrian say you won't be around much longer? My blood ran cold. What do you mean, sweetheart? He told Aunt Sarah at dinner. He said things were going to change soon. That night I did something I'd never done before. I hired a private investigator named Chen Wei, no relation, despite the name. I also did something else. I started recording everything. The pen in my pocket, the watch on my wrist, even the Buddha statue on my desk all contained state-of-the-art recording devices. Call it paranoia, but when your 7-year-old becomes an unwitting informant, you listen. 3 weeks later, Chen Wei sent me a file that changed everything. Screenshots of encrypted messages between Adrian and Daniel flooded my screen. The construction site on Pier 47. Foundation pour is Thursday night. Another message, his claustrophobia will make it worse. He'll panic himself to death before the concrete even sets. And the one that stopped my heart. 2.3 billion rupees split 2 ways. The will's been adjusted. Sarah confirmed the forgery is perfect. Sarah, my own lawyer. The woman who'd handled every contract, every deal, every legal document for 15 years. The betrayal wasn't a knife in the back, it was a full surgical operation, and everyone I trusted held a scalpel. I sat in my office, reading these words from the 2 people I trusted most. My hands didn't shake, my heart didn't race. Instead, something cold and calculating took over the same focus that built my empire. They wanted to bury me? Fine. But they'd forgotten one thing. I'd spent my entire life building backup systems. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in preparation disguised as normalcy. I attended every meeting, kissed my wife Linda goodbye each morning, read bedtime stories to Emma. But underneath, I was building my survival kit. A military-grade oxygen concentrator, small enough to fit in a jacket lining, good for 18 hours. A GPS beacon that could transmit through 30 feet of earth. A laser cutter designed for industrial glass, more than capable of handling pine wood. Each item purchased through different shell companies, delivered to separate locations, assembled in secret. Chen Wei thought I was insane. Just go to the police, he urged. With what? Messages that could be interpreted as a real estate discussion? A forged will I can't prove is forged without dying first? They've been planning this for years, Wei? The police won't believe me. But they'll believe evidence gathered from beyond the grave. The 15th of October arrived like a regular Thursday, except it was the Neural Sync annual charity gala. 500 guests, $50,000 a plate, all for children's education in Southeast Asia. Adrian gave a touching speech about family values, his voice cracking when he mentioned how proud our late father would be. Daniel toasted to lifelong friendship, looking me straight in the eye as he raised his champagne glass. "To Marcus," he said, "may he get everything he deserves." I drank the champagne. But here's what they didn't know. I'd been taking activated charcoal capsules all evening, a trick Chen Wei taught me from his days in intelligence. The drug hit my system, but lighter, controllable. I let myself sway, let my words slur slightly, let Daniel catch me as I stumbled. "He's been overworking," Daniel announced to concerned onlookers. "I'll take him home." Adrian was already by the valet, engine running. They loaded me into the back seat like cargo. I kept my breathing shallow, my body limp. As we drove through the city I'd helped build with NeuralSync's success. Through cracked eyelids, I watched familiar streets give way to industrial zones, then to the waterfront district where Pier 47 waited like an open mouth. They talked freely, thinking I was unconscious. 10 feet down, Adrian said. The foundation pour starts at 6 a.m. Even if he wakes up, even if he screams, the construction crew won't hear anything under the machinery noise. His phone's already cloned, Daniel added. We'll send resignation emails tonight, suicide note in a week. Depression from overwork. The board will buy it hell. They've been saying he needs a break for months. Mom always said he worked too hard, Adrian laughed, but it was brittle, desperate. Burnout, everyone will believe it. The wooden box was waiting at the site, fresh pine still smelling of forest. As they lowered me in, Daniel actually laughed. Ironic, isn't it? Mr. Claustrophobic, getting the burial he always feared. Remember that team building exercise where he couldn't even do the trust fall into the foam pit? And now? He trailed off, and I heard the first shovel of dirt hit the wood above me. But I wasn't afraid, because unlike them, I'd prepared. I waited in absolute darkness as dirt thundered above like a countdown to hell. Each shovelful was personal, Adrian grunting with effort, Daniel whistling off key. They buried me with the casual efficiency of men taking out trash. When the sounds finally stopped, when I heard their car engine fade into distance, I began my work. The oxygen concentrator hummed to life, a soft whisper in the suffocating dark. The GPS beacon started its steady pulse. Chen Wei would be tracking now, but I'd told him to wait. I needed them to believe they'd won. The laser cutter emerged from my shoe, its blue light almost beautiful as it traced the pine grain above my head. At 2 a.m., I cut through the box. The earth above was loose, freshly turned. Using a technique I'd researched exhaustively, small movements, creating air pockets, redistributing weight, I climbed. Every handful of dirt was a promise. They would pay. My fingers bled. My lungs burned despite the oxygen. But rage is a powerful fuel, and I had enough to burn down their entire world. At 3:47 a.m., I broke the surface. Chen Wei was waiting with a van, a change of clothes, and a new passport. Marcus Chen was dead, but Matthew Chang was very much alive. We drove straight to a private airfield where a chartered jet waited. 6 hours later, I was in Singapore, watching the sun rise over Marina Bay while my murderers slept peacefully in their beds. Singapore was strategic, no extradition for financial crimes, excellent banking privacy, and a 12-hour time difference that let me work while they slept. My war room occupied the entire top floor of a building I'd purchased through 7 shell companies. The team assembled quickly. Chen Wei handled security and investigation, his network of former intelligence officers spreading through San Francisco like invisible spider silk. Rachel Torres, a former SEC prosecutor who'd quit in disgust over institutional corruption, became my legal strategist. James Kim, an ethical hacker who'd found 0 days in 3 Fortune 500 companies, began the digital excavation of my killers' lives. Dr. Sarah Lin, a psychiatrist specializing in corporate psychopathy, helped me understand the minds I was about to destroy. We called ourselves Project Phoenix. Our mission, complete legal destruction of Adrian and Daniel, with one twist: they wouldn't know I was alive until the moment of revelation. James worked magic. Within 2 weeks, we had everything. Every email between them for 3 years, including ones they thought were deleted. The cloud never forgets, James said, pulling up messages where they discussed my life insurance, my will, even my favorite champagne brand for optimal drug absorption. We found deleted messages recovered from backups they didn't know existed. Financial records showing Adrian had been siphoning money for 2 years, small amounts he thought I wouldn't notice. Security footage from cameras in my office they didn't know existed. I'd installed them myself, paranoid about corporate espionage, never imagining the threat was already inside. The coup de grace? Audio from my own funeral. Daniel comforting my wife Linda, his hand lingering too long on her shoulder, already trying to move in on her. Adrian in the church bathroom, on the phone with Sarah the lawyer, calculating inheritance tax, while my empty coffin sat in the sanctuary. 40% goes to tax, but that still leaves us with $1.4 billion, he said. More than enough. Rachel reviewed everything with the thoroughness that had made her the SEC's most feared prosecutor. This is enough for attempted murder, fraud, conspiracy 40 years minimum. But you want more than prison, don't you? I smiled. I want complete annihilation. Then we need to let them commit more crimes. Give them rope. For 6 months, I watched from Singapore as they destroyed my company. Stock price down 60%. Mass layoffs of people I'd personally hired, families I knew by name. Adrian bought a yacht with embezzled funds, christening it New Beginnings. Daniel moved into my house to support the grieving widow, he claimed. Though the surveillance footage I was receiving showed him trying to seduce Linda nightly, wearing my clothes, sitting in my chair, playing father to my daughter. But Linda was stronger than they knew. She rejected every advance with grace that bordered on art, keeping Daniel close enough to maintain access but never letting him win. She didn't know I was alive. I couldn't risk any change in her genuine grief that might tip them off, but she was protecting our daughter, our home, of our memories with a fierceness that made me fall in love with her all over again. Every mistake they made, we documented. Every crime, we recorded. I even hired actors to pose as investors, feeding them fake opportunities to steal from, just to expand the evidence file. One investor from Dubai offered them a complicated cryptocurrency scheme. They bit immediately, transferring $50 million of company funds into what they thought was an untraceable wallet. It wasn't my. James had built it specifically to record every transaction with perfect legal clarity. The hardest part was watching Emma on hacked security feeds, crying for her daddy. Her 7th birthday passed, then her 8th. She'd stand by my study door sometimes, as if waiting for me to emerge with another bedtime story. Daniel tried to replace me, buying her expensive gifts, but she looked at him with eyes too knowing for her age. "You're not my daddy," she said once, and Daniel's face darkened in a way that made me want to abandon the plan and fly home immediately. Patience, Dr. Lin reminded me during our sessions. Revenge served at the perfect temperature is worth the wait. They're not just stealing money now, they're revealing their true selves. Every crime makes the final judgment more complete. Month 7 brought an unexpected gift. Adrian, drunk on power and champagne, started bragging to his golf buddies. One of them, unbeknownst to Adrian, was another of my plants, a former FBI agent who specialized in undercover work. Adrian actually described the burial, the box dimensions, the brand of shovel they'd used. The perfect crime, he called it. Marcus was always book smart, but I was street smart. The recording was crystal clear. It would be beautiful in court. Month 8, Daniel made his fatal error. He proposed to Linda, in my house, with my daughter watching, using my grandmother's ring he'd stolen from our safe. Linda's rejection was so visceral, so disgusted, that Daniel snapped. He grabbed her wrist, hard enough to leave marks. "You owe me," he snarled. "I've been patient. I've been supportive. Marcus is dead. You need to move on." Emma called 911, my 8-year-old daughter, with her father's instinct for documentation, and had been recording on her tablet. She'd been making a video for her YouTube channel about her doll collection when Daniel proposed. The police came. Linda filed a restraining order. Daniel's carefully maintained image cracked, and underneath was nothing but rot. 1 year after my death, NeuralSync was holding an emergency board meeting. Adrian had driven the company near bankruptcy, selling off patents I'd spent decades developing for quick cash to fund his lifestyle. Daniel was proposing a buyout from a mysterious company called Phoenix Dynamics, actually mine, operated through 7 proxies, funded by cryptocurrency I'd been mining since 2011. I sent them each a message from an encrypted number. Conference room A, 3 p.m. Come alone or the FBI gets everything. They thought it was blackmail from someone who'd discovered their crime. They came prepared to pay or threaten. They came together. Despite my instruction, criminals trust no one, not even each other. Adrian was sweating through his $5,000 suit. Daniel's hand kept moving to his pocket, where I knew he kept a ceramic knife, airport safe and lawyer approved. The conference room was arranged precisely. 3 chairs. The middle one, mine, faced away from them. On the table, 4 black boxes, each labeled with gold lettering. Box 1, the planning. Box 2, the execution. Box 3, the aftermath. Box 4, the price. They entered, saw the boxes, and Daniel spoke first. Whoever you are, we can make a deal. We have resources. I know exactly what resources you have, I said, still facing away. After all, they used to be mine. That's when I turned around. Adrian collapsed into his chair, his face cycling through white, green, and gray like a broken monitor. Daniel's reaction was more interesting: shock, disbelief, than that calculated look I knew so well, already planning his next lie. His hand moved toward the knife, then stopped. Even he wasn't stupid enough to attempt murder in a building full of security cameras. Hello, brothers, I said. Let's review your performance, shall we? I opened box 1 with the ceremony of a magician revealing his trick. Inside, printed screenshots of every message they'd exchanged planning my murder, helpfully annotated with timestamps and IP addresses. Adrian's hand shook as he read his own words. We put him in the ground Thursday. By Friday, we're millionaires. That's, Adrian stammered. That's taken out of context. Context? I laughed. Let's add some context then. Box 2 held a hard drive labeled the 15th of October, a murder documentary. I pulled out a laptop, hit play. There they were in 4 Kelvin resolution, loading my unconscious body into the car, discussing the depth of my grave, the weight of dirt needed to prevent escape. The audio was pristine, every word about my claustrophobia, about the concrete pour, about their plans for my money. Daniel watched himself on screen with the fascination of a man seeing his own autopsy. How, was all he managed. You knew about my paranoia, I said. You just didn't know how thorough it was. Every jacket I owned had cameras. Every watch had audio recording. Even my cufflinks were transmitting. You buried me with enough technology to film a movie. Which, coincidentally, I did. Box 3 was brutal recordings from after my death. Adrian at my funeral, telling our cousin that he'd always known Marcus would work himself to death. Daniel attempting to seduce Linda, saying I'd never really loved her anyway. Their lawyer, Sarah, explaining to them how to transfer assets without raising suspicions. Adrian buying his yacht with company funds, joking to the salesman that his ship had finally come in. But the crown jewel was Adrian's drunken golf course confession, complete with hand gestures demonstrating how they'd lowered me into the box. Like putting a baby to bed, he'd said, laughing. Except the baby never wakes up. Adrian vomited into the wastepaper basket. The sound echoed in the silent room. Now, I said, opening box 4, let's discuss the price of betrayal. Inside box 4, 2 sets of handcuffs and a phone with 911 pre-dialed. But there was more. Underneath the handcuffs lay a tablet displaying a countdown timer. 14 minutes, 23 seconds, and falling. Here's what happens when that timer hits 0, I explained. Packages arrive at the FBI, SEC, IRS, and Interpol. Every crime documented, every dollar traced, every lie exposed. The Wall Street Journal, Forbes, and CNN receive exclusive stories with video evidence. Your faces will be famous, but not how you wanted. Daniel lunged for the door. It locked electronically with a soft click. The building's in lockdown, I said conversationally. My security protocol. No one enters or leaves until I say so. Marcus, please. Adrian was crying now, snot running down his face. We're family. Brothers, remember when we were kids? Remember the treehouse? You said we'd always protect each other. I remember, I said. I remember the treehouse. I also remember being in a box, 10 feet underground, listening to you whistle while you buried me. It was Daniel's idea, Adrian screamed, pointing at his accomplice. He planned everything. I was just. You were just the one who provided the construction site. Daniel cut in, his survival instinct overriding loyalty. You were the one who knew about the concrete pour. You suggested the box dimensions based on Marcus's height. I let them tear into each other for exactly 60 seconds, recording every accusation. Then I held up my hand. Gentlemen, you're both going to prison. The only question is whether you go as attempted murderers or actual murderers. What? Daniel's face paled. We didn't actually kill. No, but you're about to. I pulled out a second tablet showing security footage from my house. Linda knows everything, has known for 6 months. Every conversation you had with her, recorded. Every move you made on her, documented. She's been helping me, Daniel. Your proposal? We watched it together via live stream. I saw you grab her wrist. I saw my daughter call 911. The remaining color drained from Daniel's face. But that's not the best part, I continued. Right now, Linda's at the police station with Emma, filing an amended report. See, Emma's been having nightmares. She's been telling her therapist about Uncle Daniel's threats. About Uncle Adrian talking about Daddy being gone. Children make compelling witnesses, don't they? Especially when they have video evidence on their tablets. The timer showed 8 minutes. You can't do this, Adrian whispered. Mom will. Mom knows, I said quietly. I told her last month, showed her everything. She's the one who suggested I give you one chance to confess. This was it. You failed. 6 minutes. Daniel made one last play. If we go down, you go down. Faking your death is fraud. You. I never faked anything, I interrupted. You buried me. I escaped. I went into hiding from my attempted murderers. Any crime I committed was under duress, fleeing for my life from killers who'd already proven they could reach me anywhere. My new lawyers have already filed the appropriate documentation. I'm a victim, gentlemen. You're the criminals. 4 minutes. Please, Adrian begged. Please, I'll do anything. I'll confess. I'll give back the money. You'll do all of that anyway, I said. The only thing I'm offering is the chance to surrender with dignity. Confess now, and I'll ask the prosecutor for concurrent sentences. Fight me, and I'll ensure you never see daylight again. 2 minutes. They broke simultaneously. Adrian grabbed the phone, dialing 911 with shaking fingers. I need to report a crime, he sobbed. I tried to kill my brother. I buried him alive. Daniel took the other approach, pulling out his own phone to call his lawyer. Get to neural sync now, he barked. I'm about to be arrested for attempted murder. The timer hit 0. Across the city, packages were being opened, emails were being sent, news alerts started pinging on phones. The story of the century was breaking. Tech billionaire survived burial by brother and best friend records everything. The FBI arrived at 3:47 p.m. exactly 1 year after I'd broken through the earth. The arrest was brutal. Public, I made sure media was tipped off. Every major outlet had cameras rolling as Adrian and Daniel were led out in handcuffs. Adrian sobbing, Daniel stone-faced, both in the expensive suits they'd bought with my money. Mr. Chen, reporters shouted, how did you survive? Where have you been for a year? Will you take back your company? I stood at the window, watching them being loaded into separate police cars, and gave my only statement. The dead don't always stay buried. Sometimes they come back to set things right. The trial lasted 3 months. Every day brought new revelations. The jury heard Adrian's golf course confession. They watched Daniel grab Linda's wrist. They saw the messages, the planning, the cruel jokes about my claustrophobia. Sarah, my former lawyer, flipped immediately, testifying against them in exchange for a reduced sentence. She described how they'd approached her, how they'd promised her $10 million for forging the will. Adrian's defense was that he'd been manipulated by Daniel. Daniel's defense was temporary insanity brought on by financial stress. Neither defense survived cross-examination. Rachel Torres, acting as special prosecutor, destroyed them with surgical precision. She played the burial video 3 times, each time freezing on their faces as they laughed. Adrian got 35 years, Daniel got 42, Sarah got 5. The judge called it the most calculated betrayal she'd seen in 30 years on the bench. You didn't just try to kill Marcus Chen, she said during sentencing. You tried to kill him in the way that would cause maximum psychological torture. You weaponized his deepest fear. That level of cruelty demands the harshest punishment this court can provide. As they led Daniel out, he turned to me one last time. You destroyed me, he said. No, I replied. You destroyed yourself. I just documented it. Neural sync recovered under my leadership, stronger than ever. The story of my survival, my preparation, my revenge, became Silicon Valley legend. Stock price tripled in 6 months. We pivoted to security technology. Turns out, surviving your own murder gives you unique insights into protection. Our new tagline, security so advanced, even the dead can use it. Linda and I rebuilt slowly. Trust, once shattered, requires patient reconstruction. She'd been remarkable during my absence, protecting our daughter while maintaining the facade of grief. But she'd also truly grieved the Marcus who'd trusted blindly, who'd given family endless chances. That man really had died in the box. The one who emerged was warier, sharper, perhaps better suited for the world we actually lived in rather than the one I'd wanted to believe in. Emma got her father back, along with the best therapy money could buy. Some nights, she still checks that I'm really there, touching my face like she's confirming I'm not a ghost. We don't lie to her about what happened. The internet would tell her anyway, but we frame it as a story of survival, not revenge. "Daddy," she asked me once, "why did Uncle Adrian and Uncle Daniel try to hurt you?" "Because they wanted something that wasn't theirs," I said. "But they could have just asked to share," she said with 8-year-old logic. "Yes," I agreed, "they could have." With the recovered embezzled funds, plus damages from the civil suit, I established the Phoenix Foundation supporting victims of family violence and betrayal. We've helped 847 people escape dangerous situations in our first year alone, providing security, legal support, and fresh starts. Each case is different, but the pattern is always the same. The people who should protect you become the ones you need protection from. Chen Wei runs our security division, teaching survivors how to disappear safely when needed. Rachel handles legal advocacy, ensuring justice even when the system wants to look away. James ensures digital safety for survivors, because in the modern age, escape means more than just physical distance. Dr. Lin provides crucial psychological support, helping people process the specific trauma of familial betrayal. We don't just help people survive, we help them resurrect. Last month, I returned to Pier 47. The construction's complete, now a shopping complex built on the ground where they tried to bury me. I stood where my grave would have been, now a Starbucks. The barista, a young woman with tired eyes and careful movements that suggested her own story of survival, made my coffee with extra care. "Name for the order?" she asked. "Marcus," I said, though legally I could have said Matthew. I'd kept both identities, a reminder that we can be more than one thing, survive more than one death. As I watched families shopping, couples laughing, children playing where my bones should have been, I realized something. They tried to bury me in concrete, but they actually planted a seed. What grew from that dark soil wasn't just survival or revenge, it was purpose. My phone buzzed. A message from the foundation. Another survivor, this one escaping a family trying to have her committed to steal her inheritance. We'd have her on a plane within hours, safe house ready, legal team assembled. Another resurrection in progress. The coffee cup warmed my hands, the same hands that had clawed through earth, that had signed arrest warrants, that now signed checks to save lives. On the side of the cup, the barista had written something beyond my name. "Phoenix Foundation, I know who you are. Thank you." I looked up, but she was already serving the next customer, a small smile on her face. Another survivor, recognizing another survivor. We were everywhere, those of us who'd been buried by people we loved, who'd dug ourselves out, who'd learned that resurrection was possible but never easy. 6 months ago, Adrian sent a letter from prison. I'd been expecting it. Dr. Lin had warned me that perpetrators often try to regain control through correspondence. I opened it in her office, ready for manipulation, for false apologies, for threats. But it contained only one line. "I dream about dirt every night." I didn't reply. But I did something else. I sent him a book on claustrophobia treatment, bookmarked at the chapter on therapeutic breathing. Not forgiveness, I'm not that evolved, but acknowledgement that the box he'd put me in had somehow become his own. He'd buried me for money, but he'd buried himself in the process. Every night, in his cell, he was 10 feet underground, and no amount of oxygen concentrators could help him breathe. Daniel never wrote, but his lawyer informed me he'd started a prison ministry, teaching other inmates about the dangers of greed. I laughed when I heard it. Daniel, ever the salesman, had found a new product to pitch: redemption. Whether he believed it himself was irrelevant. He had 42 years to figure it out. Linda asked me once if I regretted the revenge, if I wished I'd simply gone to the police that night instead of orchestrating such an elaborate downfall. No, I said honestly. They needed to feel powerful first. They needed to believe they'd won completely. Otherwise, it would have just been attempted murder, maybe 10 years each. They needed to commit to their crime fully, to reveal who they really were when they thought no one was watching. But you were watching. I was documenting. There's a difference. Watching implies passivity. I was building their prosecutions one crime at a time. She nodded, understanding in a way only someone who'd played grieving widow for 6 months could. We'd both performed for justice, worn masks for truth, pretended so that reality could eventually win. Yesterday was the anniversary, 2 years since the burial, 1 year since the trial. Emma and I went to the beach, not Pier 47 but a different one, cleaner, without the weight of attempted murder hanging over it. We built sandcastles, and when the tide came in, we watched them dissolve. Daddy, Emma said, I'm glad you came back. Me too, sweetheart. But you're different now. I looked at my daughter, 10 years old and already too wise. Different how? You check exits, you record things, you don't trust people the same way. She was right. The Marcus who'd drunk champagne with his murderers, who'd given his brother a job he didn't deserve, who'd trusted his best friend with everything that man had suffocated in a pine box. The one who emerged was someone else, someone who survived. Is that bad? I asked her. She considered this with the seriousness only children can bring to important questions. No, she decided. It's just true. And truth is better than lies, even when it's harder. I hugged her then, this child who'd inherited my paranoia and her mother's strength, who'd grow up knowing that family could betray you, but that you could survive it, document it, and build something better from the wreckage. As I write this, it's 3:47 a.m., the exact time I broke through the earth 2 years ago. I don't sleep well at this hour anymore. My body remembers even when my mind tries to forget. But instead of lying awake in fear, I use these hours productively. I review cases for the Phoenix Foundation. I check on our safe houses. I respond to emails from survivors who write to say thank you, to share their stories, to ask if it ever gets easier. It does and it doesn't. The hypervigilance fades but never disappears. The anger transforms into purpose but never fully dissolves. The box they put you in becomes smaller over time, but you always remember its dimensions. To those watching who've been betrayed, buried, broken by people who claim to love you, document everything, trust carefully, build your team, and remember they can bury you, but only you decide if you stay buried. To Adrian and Daniel, if you're somehow watching this from prison, you gave me a gift, not the one you intended, not death but transformation. Every person the Phoenix Foundation saves, every survivor who escapes their box, that's your true legacy. You thought you were taking my life, but you were actually giving me purpose. The earth remembers everything, every body buried, every secret hidden, every truth pushed down. But earth is also where seeds grow, where foundations are built, where phoenixes rise from ashes. You thought dirt would be my ending. It became my beginning. I'm Marcus Chen. I survived being buried alive by my brother and best friend. I documented their crimes, orchestrated their downfall, and built something beautiful from the grave they dug for me. I'm still breathing, still building, still rising. And if you're in your own box right now, trapped by someone's greed or cruelty or betrayal, remember this: the only way out is through. But through doesn't mean alone. Reach out, document, survive, and when you're ready, rise. The Phoenix isn't just a myth. Sometimes it's a business model. Sometimes it's a legal strategy. Sometimes it's just a person who refuses to stay buried, who turns their grave into a garden, who makes their resurrection everyone's inspiration. They can bury you, but they can't keep you down. Not if you're prepared, not if you document. Not if you remember that the best revenge isn't just living well, it's living publicly, successfully, and helpfully, showing every other buried person that the earth isn't as final as their abusers hoped. I'm Marcus Chen, this is my story. But more importantly, it's an invitation to write your own. Rise.